Let's call it to order at 2:02 or 3:02, excuse me. Matt, if you could put up the agenda. Great. Okay. Initial business, of course, is checking that agenda. Did anybody get a chance to go through that? Or our minutes from last week?
I looked through them and they all look the way I remember it.
Okay. Anybody, I ask then, can we?
So I'll make a motion to accept.
Very good.
I'll second that motion.
All right. So we're good to go there. The initial element that Matt's put down there is comments. I was going to suggest that we push the comments deeper into the new business section and follow up with that. If anybody has any concerns or questions here, if you'd please jump in. Is there anything that is outstanding and requires immediate attention?
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
So if I'm understanding correctly, I think we just accepted the agenda. Are you talking about correcting it and moving the persons present not on the agenda to comment later down into new business?
That would be proper sequence. I'm sorry, Matt, I'm not following the Robert's rules or the full declarations, but you have exactly what we should do, I think.
So let's try this then. I'm sorry about procedure stuff.
No worries. No, that's the way it has to go.
Is we can rescind the motion made for accepting the agenda, and if you'd like, you can make a motion to correct the agenda as you have reordered it, and then entertain a second and see if other members agree.
All right.
I believe
I would make a motion to rescind the agenda as we accepted the minutes, but I would make a motion to rescind the agenda itself and move any discussion down into the new business section of the agenda. Would anybody accept that? Or second that motion?
I would only push back in this case. It's atypical, and we actually have public commenters here, and I don't know if they would want to wait to get to those agenda items, but I'm not a member. I'm just throwing that out there.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll ask the members for your comments. Opinions there? Are we okay combining the actions?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Doesn't make me any difference either way. If Todd and I assume Todd and Nancy are the ones that wanted to have some input. What do they say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just going to make a couple of announcements.
Okay. Well, let's go with the original suggestion then, Todd, and you jump in.
Okay, my name is Todd Dixon. I live at 11045 Iona Avenue in Green Mountain Falls. And the first announcement is one to make sure, and actually kind of broadcast out to some of the committees that we're Planning Commission is getting ready to launch into our land use code rewrite. And some dates to keep in mind are we're targeting April 1st for a survey. And I'm guessing it'll likely be similar to the parking survey that was done previously. And then at the end of April, we're targeting a community input meeting. And so really those are the only dates I'm comfortable handing out at the moment. The fact we're going to try to do a survey, get folks' input on the land use code, and then have a community meeting towards the end of April. And I'm encouraging everyone to start thinking about land use codes and how we might try to do them better. And that was really it for the land use code. The second announcement is Green Mountain Falls has been nominated for an award from the American Planning Association under Community Resilience. And I am one of the people that's actually putting together a letter in support of that nomination. And so it really kind of, the people that nominated it were focusing in on our comprehensive plan. And so I'm gearing my support letter in response to that and focusing in on the comprehensive plan. If you have input that you'd like to provide, if you could send that input. Matt has my email address. So if you want to send it to Matt, then Matt can forward it on to me, or you can forward it to Julia, either one. I think Julia's providing a letter as well. I think there's 3 letters right now that are planned to go in. Our deadline is Monday, so I have to have it really by Saturday. And those are the 2 announcements I had. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
If anybody is working on a letter of support, I usually have my email open on weekends as well. So if you send stuff my way, I'll make sure Todd gets it.
Okay. Okay. So that covers that public comment.
Just to double check, I'm sorry, Jay, I keep interrupting you.
Sure. No.
I didn't want to leave Nancy hanging because Nancy's here too. I wasn't sure if she was here for a comment.
I am here for a comment, but it'd be more what Jay was talking about down by the new business.
Perfect.
So, yeah, thanks for checking.
Okay.
Cool.
So Matt, we'll just let her jump in and when that comes up.
Sounds good. I'll be quiet from here on out.
Don't worry about it. All right. So we have accepted the minutes from excuse me, I believe we have accepted the agenda, and we've accepted the, we have not accepted the minutes from the last meeting. So that business needs to be formally accepted. Do we have a motion on that? Does anybody have any comment on the minutes from last meeting?
I'll make a motion to accept them.
Okay.
I'll be happy to second that motion.
All right. Vote. We're good?
Aye.
All right. We have it. All right. The next item would be the annual plan and goals statement that Jesse put together. I think that was a very good position. We want to present this to the Board of Trustees at their first meeting in April. Is everyone comfortable with that statement? And
Yes.
follow up? We just vote on that? We take a vote that we will go forward with that statement and present this to the Board of Trustees?
Yes.
Sure.
All right. Clay, you got comment?
I'm good.
All right. I think we're good then. And then the meat of the discussion would be going into some of the details that Jesse put together. Looking at these, I think it would be best to concentrate on the first 3 on the list and try to come to some agreement about the recommendations, some details of the recommendations that we might pass along to the Board of Trustees. One of the items that start the discussion is moving the trailhead and the trail signboard to Pool Park. That puts it away from the businesses down in the center of town, but would put it in a more convenient location closer to where most of the people coming up to use the trails in Green Mountain Falls would park and start off.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just had one thing I needed to add from the previous agenda item, if that's
All right.
okay.
Sure. Yes, please go ahead.
I know I promised I'd be quiet and I broke that promise real quick. But I just wanted to let everybody know, in addition to presenting these with the board at our meeting on 4/6, the board is requesting to have all members of the committee attend. They're calling it a collaborative session. I think it's more of like a discussion-based session on why we picked the goals we picked and what we're thinking. I'm interpreting what they've told me so far as not everybody necessarily has to attend, but it's highly, highly, highly preferred that you do, and can share comment with the board on what we're working on. I have a feeling it'll more work along the lines of the chair and the vice chair will be the primary voices to communicate with the board. And if other members have additional comments, they can chime in and discuss as well. But it'll just basically be that discussion session. And then just in case, Deanna's here too, if she could elaborate on that, if I didn't touch on anything or miss something.
So I don't
Okay.
have to elaborate. I wasn't aware of that. I mean, I was not part of that request, but I think it's a good idea so that we can, hear more about where the ideas are coming from and, answer questions that.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Deanna, with that.
Yeah, Matt, that's a very good interjection. That's, clarifies what the board's looking for. If it's a discussion section, that would be great. That's 6 o'clock on the 6th or 7?
7 o'clock. 7 o'clock on the 6th.
All right.
It's a Tuesday.
That's one thing we should put in the minutes of the next in the minutes for the group, especially if Jesse's not able to be here now. He is the most knowledgeable person and best, and I want to make sure that he knows about that.
Hello,
Okay.
Karen.
Okay.
Okay,
Rebecca.
I was afraid of
Becky.
that.
Becky, can you hit mute?
I muted her. Sorry, Rebecca.
Thanks. No worries. No worries. Good. So let's go down. If we're ready now to go into new business, this will be the discussion we'll want to present to some background we'll present to the board when it comes up. The idea of moving the trailhead and the signage that goes with it over to Pool Park was one of the key steps in this discussion. The general idea was we should give the board at least a recommendation of where one might locate a sign depicting the trails, depicting the connections, and where to park in the near the pool park. That would either be along the Chipeta Road, around Maple Street parking area opposite the church, or further over by the pool. Does anybody have any comment on that or suggestion?
I thought that's what our parking plan was doing, was going to come up and tell people where to park.
Well, a sign to indicate that was one of the elements that was listed here as a new element, and that was my understanding of
I thought
Jesse's.
we were waiting for I thought that's what all of this parking study we've been doing is trying to come up with where we're going to have hikers parked and if we're not going to charge them. And they're going to park where they're going to park until we come up or till that parking thing's through. I just don't understand what you really meant by your comment, because that was sort of the part, or my interpretation
All right.
was it was the parking plan that we're waiting on.
Well, at least the signage for the trailhead was listed in Jesse's position. My understanding was that would be the place to park, but I haven't seen anything from that parking study beyond the projection of revenue, and I don't know if anybody else has any other. Has any of the details that came from that discussion?
Rebecca
Matt, do you know
has
any more
raised-
about where?
Oh, sorry. I was just about to say Rebecca raised her hand and wanted to comment. I'm trying to let the members discuss.
Sure.
My comment is I would like the trailhead over by where the hikers park across from the church rather than over by the pool, because that kind of separates those two areas. And Clay, I thought you had a suggestion to do that as well. We don't know when the parking thing is going to commence. So I think we just need to do what we need to do until then. That's all.
I'll add on to the parking information because I think, Clay, you're going to ask me about it. I hope I understood that correctly. Was as far as I know, I'm not the expert in parking stuff by any means. The RFP period closed, I want to say a couple days ago. Angie is reviewing potential partners in their submittals. And then I think once staff has sort of negotiated with the various entities, they'll move forward. The dates that Angie shared with me is she'd like to have the program up and running by May or June. And so that's very fast and very quick. So I think it might be fruitful for this committee to consider providing recommendations for what they want in that parking negotiation. So if they want parking to be in a certain spot and signage to be in a certain spot, they can push that to both town staff and I think they're calling it the wayfinding or signage task force to make better decisions. That would be my thought process, at least.
Okay. Yeah, we could certainly we could set the trailhead signage. We could bring that trailhead signage issue forward without waiting on the parking, just to fix a location for the signage. I don't believe the signage in the immediately adjacent to the business parking has been very successful. Just having worked as a trail ambassador, as you said, as had been said earlier, people park closer to the trails to start, either down the road toward the Wallace Reserve at Mountain Road, or up next to the church. That would be either cloning or shifting the signage, the big trailhead sign, up to the along Chipeta to the area that is a sort of a takeoff point. Is there any other thoughts about where we might locate that? I'd like to have some. I think it would be good just to have a couple details to start the Board of Trustees off.
This is Clay here. My opinion of where this virtual trailhead or where the sign could go would be just to the north or the west of Maple Street, right where the temporary bridge went through. There's a spot right there that's big enough where it won't be taking parking spots. It's close. It's right in the middle of where the people are going to park. There's room there for trash cans and there's room there for porta potties, and it won't take up any parking spots. The only other place where we're going to get a big enough spot to have what we talked about in that trailhead is going to be taking up parking spots or in a park somewhere. But that one spot is closest to the parking right by Maple Street.
Yep. I think you've got a very good thought there. So is that something, Clay, that can you take a snip of a map and point to that location and so that we could bring that to the Board of Trustees?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll draw up a little layout of where it would work in there and send it out. You want me to send it to you, Jay, or to Jesse? Or both of you?
Send it to both of us. Jesse would be the guy who would handle that, but if he isn't able to jump in, I'll be available in the next little bit. Does anybody else?
Just to add on to, in this particular case, I think it might be expeditious, I think that's a word, to go straight to town staff with this, since Angie's actively negotiating and discussing with the parking companies and the signage groups. We could send it to the board and they could review stuff, but I could get it to Angie like right away once you guys get that, or once Clay sends that over to Jesse and Jay, if you would like that as well.
Okay. Yeah, that would be good. Well, I think that's a route we'll have to go on a couple of these to get stuff moving. You know,
I have a question, Jay.
sure, Don.
Other than the sign as it exists today, what function do you think it's performing for hikers and tourists?
Well, I think it kind of goes down to the down to item C below there. One of the things that we're really lacking, and we can't, it's unfortunately something we can't go into real detail on now, but I think that it would be useful to have at least a placard that illustrates where parking should be and where the trails start from that point. If I can grab the screen real quickly, we kind of I think we jump ahead. I'd like to jump ahead to item C and just show this. I can share. Okay, Matt, can you give me this? Can you give me the com?
Doing it right now.
Great.
You are a co-host now, so you should be able to share.
Okay. And I'm going to jump over to another screen. And you should see a map that had been, and it was an abridged version of a trail map that had been in use last year. And does that come up yet?
Yep.
Okay, good. This is a cut of the trail map. It's a little bit lower resolution, but it illustrates where the trailheads sit and the parking areas that were discussed last year. We may want to change these, or we may want to we may want to use this as the start of discussion. But the areas that were listed for parking in the original plan were opposite the businesses downtown, then the stretch of parking here along Maple Street. Clay, I believe your signage location is right about here.
Yes.
And then there's the area that had been used as a staging area for materials, but it's also a viable parking area for hikers, or had been a viable parking area for hikers. I would suggest that a placard like this could be used on the signage to give hikers a start on, all right, here you are, here's where you're talking about going. Going up, or here, for example, here to Dewey, going up Grandview and then over, then up, and then across on Myrtle. Something like this might be a very useful thing on the signage. The other piece that might be valuable with the signage is some kind of feedback on the trails. For example, right now, Crystal Trail would not be recommended for the average hiker because of its steepness and because of the wintertime ice formations along that area. Also, Catamount is the connection coming off Hondo is extremely icy right now. We could put just a comment or a current conditions remark on that placard. That would be something that might be updated over time as situations for the different trails change. And that would be the kind of thing that I'd propose we bring up to the Board of Trustees And this is very open-ended. I'm certainly not going to say that that's exactly what one should do, but I'd like to use that as a discussion point. So the combination of the trail map or the trailhead map and some background on the trails would be the kind of thing that I think could go on a physical trailhead at the Maple Street location or at the downtown, or at the current downtown location. Any thoughts, suggestions, folks?
I like your suggestion. I think it's more viable than just using the sign as it is. It's hardly worth moving.
Well, we could leave the sign that's in place today, and if it's reasonable, build another one here at the location that Clay was pointing to.
I like that because we get a lot of visitors and tourists to the gazebo lake that that they may not know about our hiking system, and that'd be a good place to promote it.
Yeah. Well, we could, the other thing that we don't have on this, we don't have the trail, the ADT trail, which comes away, I think it's right about here on El Paso.
Yeah.
It starts off here. There's a parking area. There's a little parking area here. I don't think that sits in this. This is an older piece that had been put together, I believe, by the old trail committee. Expanding or using this a little differently might give us something that directs people and gives them a start on the proposal.
Jay, are you entertaining public comment for this?
Sure. Sure.
Nancy Dixon in the chat said, could there also be trail info on where they go, trail difficulty, and how long they are?
That would be very valuable. Just comments on the trails. I can imagine, here's this piece here was part of that old trail, or that old trail map. We could add something similar, just listing the trail and some background on it. We probably want one trail, parking area, length of the trail, and conditions. Any other thoughts, folks?
I really like that idea until we can get maps. That's really a good thing.
Yeah, I don't think given the circumstances with all of the uncertainties about the trails, I don't think we want to put a lot of detail into the trail maps themselves, but at least telling people where they're going to go, because they're going to show up here, would be a good thing. And it's something that we can start and we can update over time as the parking plans become more definitive. So we could blend that over, and certainly there'd be fewer people in the April-May timeframe coming in, and then we can update that to match the outcome of the parking decisions.
Nancy Dixon also added in the chat, also the color of the trail on the map, if possible. I don't know what that means. Yeah. What is the color of a trail?
There are trail markers. This map is not very detailed, but here, for example, this light blue is the marker that on the trail map, on the trail going up Crystal Falls. There are light blue markers, little circles. In the old days, they were the tops of juice cans were painted, and you nailed them to the center of the tree. The Wallace Reserve is kind of orange, and the Thomas Trail is yellow, but it doesn't list that here. So breaking this down in more detail is apparently, I think, is Nancy's suggestion.
So it's like a difficulty kind of thing, like a oh, okay. Are the
Yeah.
icy blue ones are the tough ones? Those are the ones I should avoid?
Not, you'd be fine. Some of the trails are little different. Everything has, there are difficulties everywhere, but you can manage that. Commenting on it though, having a specific comment on difficulty would be worthwhile. And we could, for example, the short length of ADT trail that goes over towards the school is quite mellow and easy. And that would be a good thing to highlight to people. You get a lot, I know, as having worked as trail ambassador, you get a lot of people who go up a couple hundred feet and then ask you, does this keep going up?
I hope this isn't an absurd question, but do trail maps, do they sometimes list things related to like accessibility or people with disabilities if they're like accessible in any way? Typically, hiking trails are not are not suitable for people with disabilities. Sure.
There are no trails in Green Mountain Falls that are paved, for example, so that you could use them with a wheelchair. That is one of the proposals in that long-term comprehensive plan, that paving the loop around Gazebo Lake was one of the elements that was in that. And I think that would be a great thing as things develop, but that requires funding, that requires a lot more planning and preparation.
Just curious. Thanks, Jay.
No. I will do this. I would suggest that I will put together a candidate of text for this. I don't think we can, following the open meeting law, I don't believe I can just disseminate it directly, but I could bring a copy to the discussion on the 6th and use that as a springboard with the Board of Trustees. Deani specifically, would that be the right format for carrying that kind of discussion forward?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful if we could have some input. I think that having some text that accompanies the idea would be really helpful for the board, where everyone's coming from.
Okay. What I will do is I'll put together a rump of this kind of this map and some text that includes the background on trail length, the markers that are appropriate for each trail, and comments on, it might be commented as current conditions. Well, that'll be my action. I gave Clay the action of proposing the signage location. I'll put that, Clay, is it appropriate to, I'll put a small marker here on the on that trail map, but if you can put a little more detail into that, what you think might be appropriate for a trailhead sign, would that be right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I think we've got some general ideas of what we're going to do for items A and C in that listing. For item B, the trail ambassador status was the reference that that Matt had put up. Matt, if you could go back to the agenda. Super. The trail ambassador schedule and program. I had worked at it. I had worked at trail ambassador last year. We began the process. I don't have much background other than the time that I spent on it. Deani, if you can make a suggestion to us, do we have what kind of staff do we have? How many people went through the program through the training program last year?
Sure. So just to give you some background, we don't have really any formal staff overseeing it, kind of just a group of volunteers that decided to step. So I was kind of coordinating the emails. We had 2 training sessions, and that was done by the Trails and Open Space Coalition with Susan Davies kind of helping out. And she said she'd be more than happy to, help us again this summer. We had a fair amount of people who expressed interest, a significantly fewer number of people who actually showed up to the trainings. And then of those people who showed up to the trainings, we had maybe about 9 people that actually signed up for shifts. So there were about 9 people that were actually on the trail. That includes myself as well as Jay. And so, the amount of people that we have is pretty limited. So that's some of the background for what happened last year.
Do you have a feeling for how much coverage or what the peak time periods that need to be cut would be desirable to cover? We're talking probably Saturday and Sunday mornings. Did we? Okay, good.
Yeah, so I mean, really the peak times are the weekends. Of the people who were volunteering, the majority, well, pretty much all of them are wanting to go out and kind of do ambassador duties while doing normal routes, hiking. There were some people that expressed interest in kind of setting up at a kiosk at a parking lot, or at a visitor center kind of space, because they weren't interested in hiking, but those people again didn't go to an application and kind of didn't follow through. So the amount of people that are willing to volunteer is pretty limited. But really the weekend times are going to be the heaviest times. On average, our volunteers were going out a couple of shifts, maybe each week. And then of those times, they average about 3 hours per shift. So the coverage for those 9 people is still, it's limited.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we probably need to recruit more people in the process. I see Nancy nodding. Do you want to make a public comment, Nancy?
Sure, I can. So yeah, I was part of that ambassador program, and it's a great program. It's just that, we were sort of in our infancy and just trying to figure things out. We were at the very end of the really peak hiking season, but I really feel that program is a worthwhile program, because between that and having wayfinding signage for the hikers, you might have your virtual trail, what you're talking about just earlier, and that's a good reference. But if you have a human being actually close by that can actually say, well, just keep going this way, because last Friday, Todd and I walked down to the pantry, and there was a brother and sister who'd come from Oklahoma City, and they were eating breakfast, and they'd actually shopped at Bones and Stones. So they were consumers, but they also wanted to go hiking. Well, at Bones and Stones, they gave them an old map that they were trying to send him up Catamount, and Todd and I are like, that is just icy. Do you have any, your cleats? And they said, no. And I said, well, go up Dewey. Well, that map was so old, it didn't even have Dewey on it. And so I said, well, just follow the purple little markers. Well, those purple little markers are sort of hard to find too. And they sort of went off track. But if we had some really, really good signage to get people to the virtual, the real trailheads, that takes humans. And so I feel like the ambassador program is a worth it program. I'm all behind it. I just feel like we need to do a little bit more recruiting, and the more people we have, the less we can, put on their shoulders as far as, well, maybe it's only 2 hours a month that you have to do it. Or not have to do it. I mean, they want to do it. So I'm willing to help in any way possible with the ambassador program, and just know that it's a good program. It'll solve a lot of the hiking problems, I feel.
Yeah, I would say that. So I've talked with, when we're trying to kind of roll out this volunteer program, I talked with some of the other more like the kind of well-known ambassador programs throughout the country. So one of them was with a program that had been running for about 5 years or so. And their biggest problem was volunteer retention, and the amount of, I guess, manpower it took to organize and recruit volunteers. So they actually hired an AmeriCorps volunteer, one to just kind of have a consistent presence, and then also to manage the volunteer scheduling. With kind of restarting again this year, I would say that the next logical step for trying to get things started would be to coordinate with Susan Davies, who kind of helped out with our orientations last year, and to try and set up another orientation and gauge interest, and kind of take things from there.
Okay, that sounds like that's something we should put on the discussion agenda with the Board of Trustees. That would be a component of that, sort of fleshing out that item on the ambassador program. Potentially, say, having let me see. Deanne, when you set up the original Trail Ambassador program, you gave it a roughly, I know you had 2 meetings, two sessions. Is that something that you think would take a couple weeks after approval by the Board of Trustees?
So the Board of Trustees blanket approved an ambassador program, volunteer program, to go forward. So they,
Okay.
checked with Angie, and she's, said kind of run with it. It's already been approved by the Board of Trustees, unless it's required additional funding. The actual management did not need to go through the Board of Trustees again.
Okay, good.
I think
So we,
some degree of freedom to try and come up with how to manage, again this year, and possibly improve it.
okay.
I had a quick question, if you don't mind.
Please.
Deanne, this one's actually for you, or for anybody, I guess, who was a trail ambassador last year. Was there any town budget spent on recruitment or incentives, or any money spent?
Yeah, so from my understanding, I believe the marshal took a small portion of his budget to help out with, I don't know if that went directly to the t-shirts, but he had volunteered a small portion of his budget. And then Trails and Open Space Coalition, they also received a grant to help do programming specifically for starting up programs like this. So they actually came out, but no money was spent from the town budget specifically for visitors.
So not that I love spending money all the time, but I was perusing the town budget real quick to see if there was any way we could finagle some additional funds. And I think I found a line item we might be able to address. It's only $700, but it's better than zero. And then if it's something we can combine with another organization, perhaps this could be used as a tool to maybe advertise, get some shirts, maybe put some pizza parties together to make people excited about wanting to show up. Or I guess hikers probably don't eat pizza. Sorry, clearly I'm out of my depth. But something along the lines of that, that we have money coming from the town supporting the program. So I think we could do that.
Sure. And I would say that, so I still have some shirts that were left over from the order last year. So I do have some shirts and buttons. I'm just kind of hanging on to them because there's really no formal staff managing the program. I think the biggest issue that we ran into was lack of maps, and then the cost of printing maps. So that would be, one thing that you would could potentially spend money on. Having a map for the ambassadors to guide people to when they're talking is just so helpful. And so even just giving the ambassadors laminated maps, you know, if budget is an issue, that would be a big improvement from last year.
Thank
So
you, Johnny.
even if we had like a laminated map, a lot of times, you know, we didn't have maps to hand out. Hikers would just take a picture. So that was helpful.
Sounds like we need a digital map.
Well, the value of a digital map would be that that piece that we have could be updated as the town introduces new, you know, especially introducing the parking restrictions or parking plan. Or if there are changes to the access point of a trail. Through the course of this year, we're going to have a new set of trails for the Terrell installation, and that would be important to add. You don't want to point people in that direction until they're open and fully developed. But you know, that digital map would be the core that we could post on a large sign and carry along for the trail ambassadors. So recruiting a few more trail ambassadors. Gianni has goodies. I do like that shirt, by the way. That was very helpful. Marked me as a person to go ask a question when I did a trail ambassador session. And the digital map would give us a tool to work with the people. So those would be the items that I think we could discuss with the town, with the Board of Trustees in that meeting a week from Tuesday.
The other two things that were raised, the feedback I wanted to throw in terms of budgeting, is a lot of the ambassadors had wanted to pick up trash. And so having a mechanism for providing them with trash bags and gloves, given that they're volunteering to pick up trash, I think it's kind of a courtesy. And so having space for them to pick up supplies, you know, at the beginning of their shifts really helps.
Yeah. Okay, so that would be an item, that's one more item we'll add. Is there anything else we need to, we can bring up, that anybody wants to bring up on any of those first 3 points from Jesse's list?
Rebecca, do you want to talk about
Do I want to talk about what?
private property? Why don't you talk about it, please?
I don't think that's a subject that we can complete today. It's just really too big. And I'm wondering if Todd's, where was I? Community input, the April survey of town land, if any of that would address private property issues and trails, if Todd is still here.
I don't believe that touches on the actual like survey of land. I think it's a survey for the land use code.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
Rebecca, what we had put together about we missed it at the last meeting, was the town survey. That was what the mayor had asked us to do. And when we put together our list of recommendations and stuff, after our list was put together, it did make it on the list that we approved the last meeting to have trail surveys on.
Right, or sending
On there.
letter to private property owners?
just,
Is that what you're discussing?
Yes. And it's just something else that
Yes,
the
I think
trail
we
maps
really,
are just, it's a big deal putting out maps that are showing people to go to private property. I mean,
that's true.
the town is the one that's going to have the liability of it, but I don't want to be part of a recommendation to put a map out there directing people to go to private. property. And the way I understood the last meeting, that Angie had talked about the Forest Service and the Colorado Springs Utilities, they're going to look into it, but they didn't want anything published showing the trailheads on those maps. Anything published showing trails on their property. Do you guys remember that the way I do?
You're
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, so having said
That was
that,
prior to,
having
Go
said that, there's only, the only trails that can really be put down and shown on a map are the ones that are owned by the historical Green Mountain Falls. Because all the rest of the trails are on private part of them, or the trailheads are on private property, national forest or city watershed. The only trails that they can really go on are the ones that are owned by historical Green Mountain Falls.
So let me understand this. You're suggesting that we actually close all of our trails except for historic Green Mountain Falls. We're put up trails closed signs.
I'm not
No.
recommending closing them, but I'm just saying, I think we got to really be careful about recommending that we put signage and maps out there directing people to go to private property, especially after the conversation was had with the Forest Service and the city, and they said not to be putting anything out there with trail maps, no trail maps showing the trailheads on their property.
As I understand it, we're not putting out trail maps. We're putting out information on trails that people that are using like All Trails and stuff like that are already going to use. We're not making maps or handing out maps. Am I misunderstanding this?
No, in fact, what I was thinking too is you can make the recommendation to town staff to not include these when they're putting the maps together. You know, go through the board, recommend to make the maps. The board directs town staff to make the maps, but to exclude the trails that have private property on them. Does that make sense? I think that's that should be the process.
So you're going to make a map that doesn't have any information on it.
And that's the unfortunate truth.
Jay, I have a question.
sure.
What's the feasibility of having a private organization putting out a map?
I don't think there's any, I mean, doesn't put any liability on the town. I'm not aware, I know Clay, you directed me to the old, to that October meeting. I was unaware of any of that. Prior to that, I was unaware of any other statement, but there are certainly access points that people use. And, you know, that's not something that the town would be liable for if someone else puts out a map. There's crappy maps all over. That would limit the utility of any of the trailhead background. However, in that light, comments on the conditions on trails could not be circulated by the trail ambassadors or posted on the city trailhead maps.
Say that again.
I don't think that, as Clay is recounting this, if the statement from the town is that they don't want, or that they don't want to post or direct people to trails that are closed by action of the Forest Service or by the city water department, we couldn't comment on the trail, on the conditions of the trails or the markers. This is not anything the trail ambassadors would want to or could produce or discuss. The only trails would be the, thinking about it, the only trail that you could really go on would be the Dewey Trail, the Terrell when it comes open, and the network at the Wallace Reserve.
I agree with that.
So Clay, would you suggest that we bring up to the Board of Trustees your 3 suggestions, either make a survey or send a letter to private landowners asking, because that would have to do with Thomas Trail, at least they could do that. Or your other suggestion, it doesn't come to mind right now.
Well, what we put together, Rebecca, and sent
Yes,
that didn't make it on the revised list Jesse put together was we recommended putting out a letter to all property owners, telling them that we are looking into a survey and we are going to get the survey as soon as funding is available to make sure where all the trails actually cross their property, but we're going to continue to operate the trails unless we hear from them objecting. We're going to continue to operate the trails as we have. But that didn't make the list of our recommendations. So I don't really know where to go from there, Rebecca.
I think that we need to bring it up to the Board of Trustees because it's essential to everything else we do
I do
regarding
too.
marking trails.
I think the conversation we're having right now, we need to have with the town council and that they make the decision. What are we going to do? We've got to have it. Maps are all critical. To have a trail system, you have to have maps. To have a trail system, you have to have trails that are you can legally be on. You can't have a trail system and put out maps when you got a trail system that's built on private property and national forest. And they don't really care. They've not closed the trails, National Forest or the Colorado Springs. And all I'm going off of is what was said at the last meeting by Angie. I don't want us publicizing.
Right.
Have I said
Okay,
anything?
this, Clay, this came
I'm sorry.
discussed in the Board of Trustees meeting?
At the last meeting, Angie spoke to us. Where did I see that? Was it an email she sent out or did they spoke? Where did they talk about that, Rebecca? Was it Angie talking last time?
Yes, Angie was talking at our PRT meeting. She was here instead of Diani.
Right. And she said, correct me if I'm wrong, she said that they spoke with the Colorado Springs Utilities, they spoke with the Forest Service, and they are going to walk the trails to confirm where they are, but they weren't going to make any decisions on it right now, but they didn't want anything being publicized as far as publicizing those trails on that property. Is that correct?
That's correct. That is what she said.
Okay, that's
Okay.
prior to I joined the board, so I'm sorry if I demonstrated my ignorance or my limitations.
Does
That was a
anybody,
meeting.
does anybody know if there was one of our members present at that meeting with Angie and the?
There was not.
I thought that was understood.
That was not understood. And Don, regarding your question about another organization putting out trail maps, I would wonder if that would shift the liability to that group that put out that trail map. So they might not really want to do that.
Well, I was just searching for, an avenue of producing a map that didn't expose the city to any potential liability. And that seemed like a reasonable solution to me because there's already companies that are doing that. Electronic maps.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that we have the most difficulty with in the town is the electronic maps from All Trails are they are volunteer supplied, and any person can can upload a map into All Trails. And that's the source of a lot of the communication or a lot of the publicity about the town trails. And they are often quite bad. There are, for example, I was shown a map that's called the Crystal Trail, a moderate trail, and Thomas, a difficult trail.
Wow.
Vice versa. You know, just people don't do a great job of crowdsourcing that kind of information. And that might be something that we have to bring to the board's attention to say, if you can't put out something, we're going to have more difficulty than we
Right.
will if we let it. If we just let everything go as it might. So it's a fish or cut bait kind of a situation.
I'm afraid that the board will say cut bait and close all the trails until this problem is resolved. That's my greatest fear.
I think the argument that we have to bring to them is that people are going to come up here. There are a large number of people who know the outlines of the trails, and we will have uncontrolled presence in the town. And I think that's the argument that we want to present to the town, to say, even if it's difficult or if we have to carry forward, it is preferable to have some organization or some direction. And within that direction, we could take some actions to throttle things down, but we really do need to bring that forward. Any other thoughts about that?
Jay?
Sure.
You just give us some direction here. Are we trying to resolve a map issue today or what?
No, I just want to come to I'm sorry. I'm hoping we could come to some discussion about how we go forward. It's clear that the trail maps present us with a difficult situation. If the town has taken a position that don't want to have, that the entities that own property have asked us to put it on hold, we cannot come to the trail map points. We can at least sketch what would be ready to put together. That could be a map that presents conditions as of today. Catamount Trail, closed pending discussion with the Forest Service. That might be I think that would be that's the input that I'm taking from Clay's commentary on the closures.
If that's the case, should we not table this motion, table this subject about the maps until that issue is resolved?
Yeah, I think you're right. If you make a motion to go forward with items A and B and hold on the trail map. Is that a good solution?
I'll make that motion, that we move ahead with items A and B, and we table C trail maps until the city management resolves that private property issue.
Okay. Clay, that would mean the trailhead signage at least could be defined. And I would include that in the candidate trail map. And if you can go ahead with that piece that you sketched, that would be useful. And then we,
I'll just show it as future trail map.
perfect. Okay. And then we'll wait on the ambassador program. The schedule is probably something Donnie, I don't think that there's much that can be done until there's outreach from the training organizations like Susan Davies and so forth.
I think
Okay.
essentially she's just waiting for us to come up with when we want to start scheduling things. So if you would like, I can send her an email and gauge her availability. Or if you have specific dates that you want me to ask her about for like a orientation meeting, I can bring that up as well.
I think if you just ask her what's available. Let's get going on that. That would probably
Okay.
be the best thing going.
Okay, I'll go ahead and reach out to her, and then I'll forward it to the chair and to Matt.
Okay. Okay. So and then item C were tabled.
We technically only have a motion to table.
All right. Okay.
Yes, we need a
I'll
second
second.
and vote.
Can we vote on? Are we ready to vote on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
I sir support that. Don? Support it?
Yes.
Okay. So it looks
Aye.
like okay, good. Clay's on it, so we're 4-0 for carrying forward on the new business. So A and B, we have some details, and we've tabled item C.
Okay.
All right. The other item that's on the agenda is the Planning Department newsletter. And I think Todd raised that in his initial commentary. Is there anything more we need to discuss there?
No, just reminders for the surveys coming out on the 1st. I had this big old thing and Todd totally stole my thunder. So really the biggest thing would be is if you're interested in writing a letter of support for that American Planning Association award, is get that to Todd by Saturday. And then the other thing was we had talked, I believe in our last meeting, about this newsletter, and we were going to do a call out for volunteers for the trail ambassadors. And I think that sort of dovetailed well from our discussion earlier. Are we still planning on doing that call out for their, I guess they're not calling it a newsletter. It's basically a newsletter.
I think there, Deani just needs to get a date, and that would be the key item in the newsletter, wouldn't it?
So we might have to skip this one, is what it's sounding like, maybe, since we don't have dates yet.
Yeah, I think that would be the core item for the ambassadors.
Okay.
Getting started.
Okay. Other than that, I don't have anything to add for the newsletter.
Okay. I think then we're on a point of adjourning if there are no other reports or no other background. I'll prepare a reference, as I described, a rump of a potential future trail map. Clay will be doing the location of a future trailhead, and Deani has the discussion with the Trails and Open Space people to enlist potential new ambassadors. We certainly aren't going to start people circulating and anticipating hikers until the issues with the city are resolved. So I would, sorry, if there's nothing else, I would propose that we adjourn. Do we have a motion, or is there first properly I should ask, is there any other thoughts on the group? I'm not the Robert's Rules of Order person. If there's no other comment, I would suggest that we adjourn for today, And we plan to follow up and join the Board of Trustees for their discussion on Tuesday next, the 4/6.
Okay, just to let you know, I will not be able to attend on that night.
Okay. Shouldn't be a problem.
I move that we adjourn.
I second that motion.
All right. I'm adjourning. I vote yay.
Yay.
Hey,
Bye, everybody.
bye.
Okay,
Thank you,
Take
everybody,
care.
for your time today.
that was great. Thank you.
Good job, Jay.
Yeah, great job, man.
Yeah.
I lack Mr. Strain, his smoothness. He is much
He
more.
is.
Hey,
He-
hey, Jay, are you on Facebook?
Yeah,
I'm gonna send you a friend request.
sure, will do.
See
Me
ya.
too. See you, Jay.